Today's video is sponsored by the Forrest Imel 5-Color Playmat Kickstarter. Forrest Imel is a Magic the Gathering artist, and you might recognize his work with cards like Dockside Extortionist and Seedborn Muse. This Kickstarter features 5 brand new arts that each represent the different colors of Magic. The playmats all have premium stitched edging and come automatically signed by Forrest Imel himself. Unless, of course, you rather they didn't. There's also no brand logos or advertising to clutter up and distract from the art. The playmats printed in this Kickstarter are extremely limited edition. They won't be printed in this way again, so make sure you back the Kickstarter today. There's only 9 days left from the date that we aired this episode. So make sure you back this Kickstarter today so you don't miss your chance to get these exclusive playmats. You can find a link down below in the description. All right, let's go ahead and get back to the video. Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we've got Yanks on the call again. This is sort of one of our wrap-up videos to our limited set reviews. Yanks, welcome back.
Good to be back to talk about Bloomburrow now that we've gotten into the set a little bit.
Yeah, so today we're going to be going over all of the commons, uncommons, and rares that are performing best according to 17 lands. We're also going to dive into some of the analytics about like what archetypes are performing the best. We're going to go over how those really good cards compared to our ratings, what we were wrong about, what we were right about. And then there will be a follow-up video where we go over cards that over or underperformed our expectations that aren't necessarily scoring on the top performance, because I'm sure there was still a lot we were wrong about. So first up, we're going to be going over each common that is the best performing common in each color. So that doesn't mean these are the top 5 all performing. It just means that it's the best performing in its color. Does that make sense?
Yeah, each color is going to have, varying different levels of performance based on, we'll see the archetypes, which archetypes are best. Spoiler alert, it's pretty skewed towards a couple colors.
Absolutely, which is why I wanted to point out, like, the best blue common is not necessarily in the top 5 performing commons, because blue is kind of not good.
Note, it's barely in the top half.
Yes, so let's go ahead and dive in for the commons, and the best performing white common is Carrot Cake. When Carrot Cake enters, you can, or when you sacrifice it, you get to create a 1/1 rabbit and you can scry 1. There's a couple of different ways you can sacrifice this. You can either pay 2, tap it to gain the 3 life, or you can use a forage mechanic, which sort of, complements certain cards in the set very well. So we had rated this both agreeing on a 5, which is like playable, going to be good in like a synergistic deck, but never a thing that you're like actively looking for to pick up, and that just simply isn't the case with this card.
Yeah, this card's an interesting one. Like, it is the top rated common in the set according to 17 lands for having it in your deck. We definitely underrated this card, but I'm not sure by how much, because it's kind of just a role player even in a really good deck.
Yeah, I think the issue here is that like the Signpost uncommon is bigger based on creatures. The format is a little go wide more than we thought, and being on the play and being very aggressive 1-drop, 2-drop is actually much better here than it has been in the last couple of sets. It's very quick, very aggressive, very creature combat oriented, and having 2 bodies is just really good in general in the format and really amazing in bunnies, obviously.
For sure.
So looking back, what would we rate this?
I'd probably bump it like a full point, maybe 1.5. It's still hard to call this like a 7 or anything because it's still relatively low impact.
But it's just a card that you always want, and if it's a card you're looking for, it's going to be a 6.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the best blue common that you are going to see in your draft archetypes, and that's Dire Downdraft. 4 mana for an instant. It costs 1 less to cast if it's targeting a attacking or tapped creature. Target creature puts it on top or bottom of its owner's library. So we've always liked these sorts of things. It's a bounce spell, instant speed that's not card disadvantage. So I thought this was a good card. I thought it was a 5. And even though it's the best performing common, I don't know that I think it's much higher than that still.
No, I don't think it is. I mean, there are 81 commons in the set and it's ranked 40th, basically dead average.
So the best performing blue common is 40th out of 80. That goes to show you how unimpressive blue is.
Yeah, exactly. Now,
So
we don't know that going into the rankings, so
no,
that's not why we gave this a 5, but it ended up being kind of correct.
yeah. So I think with this one, we were off by a point with carrot cake. We kind of rated these two things equal, which normally I love me a good bounce spell, but it turns out that this is just going to be significantly weaker. All
Agreed.
right, moving up, we've got Savor, which this one is not surprising that this is the best performing black card at common. It's 2 mana for an instant. Target creature gets -2/-2, and you create a food, which is just relevant in everything. In addition to just having the forage mechanic be somewhat relevant, and I've had a couple of food tokens win me games just because I'm able to outpace.
Yeah, it's cheap, efficient removal with a bonus. We rated this pretty highly, and it's performing like it.
Yeah, we rated this 7.5, which is just shy of our premium removal. So that means our rating was substantially higher than Carrot Cake. And Carrot Cake is a better performing card, if I'm not mistaken, between those two.
Yep, Carrot Cake is the top common in the set.
Yeah. So based on win rate, I would say, or Carrot Cake is clearly the winner between these two. But I personally still like this better.
I agree.
The thing is, bunny decks are hard to make.
Yeah, Carrot Cake's win rate is a lot more to do with the archetypes than it is with the card itself.
Yeah, because I think overall bunnies are just very powerful. So like decks with Carrot Cake are going to have a high win rate because that deck is very good. So I think it gets a little bit of like a free ride.
Yep, although it is notable that even among the white and green commons, it is still the top one.
Yes. Let's go ahead and take a look at the best red common. That's Take Out the Trash, 2 mana for an instant, 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If you control a raccoon, you can discard a card and draw a card. Being in red, there's a lot of good raccoons that even if you're not in a raccoon deck, still happen. Just kind of naturally in your deck. So I find even if I'm trying to play lizards or something else, I still end up with a few raccoons. So it's not a non-issue. It is still an issue for your opponent, even if you're not in Gruul, right?
For sure. And even if you can't get the, rummage effect, it's 2 mana deal 3. I'm pretty happy with that at instant speed.
Yeah. Rating wise, we gave this card. These are not in order.
They're in order of how I had to rewatch the videos to check our ratings.
That makes sense.
So take out the trashes. We gave it a 7.
Okay, we agreed on a 7. Would you still agree that this is correct?
I think so. It's in the top quarter or so of commons, which I think has a lot more to say about red than it does about this card. I'm happy to have multiples of this. Yeah, I think it's still a good card.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm on point with a 7. Next up, we have Cash Grab. This is a card I think we underrated quite a bit, which I knew from day one. This is a 2 mana instant speed, mill 4 cards, put a permanent card from among them into your hand, and then if you control a squirrel or return to squirrel card, you can create a food. So I think I underestimated how much the food was going to be relevant, and the milled cards. This is enabling all of the forages in multiple ways and not knocking you down as far as cards go. This card has felt very good every time I've cast it and felt very scary when my opponents cast it.
So I know this card is very highly rated. I actually don't think I've played with it or against it, which is kind of funny.
It is in this weird thing where it by itself is not particularly powerful, but it is such a good enabler that really allows squirrel decks or just like mild squirrel decks to get this ton of incremental value, and it just benefits them along the way. It lets them dig for their premium squirrels. It lets them forage 2 times for free, basically, and it's just enough to be extremely scary every time someone casts it.
Yeah, I will say one thing from previous sets that I think I probably missed on this card or underrated on this card is that anytime you're getting essentially free pieces of cardboard, in this case food, there's always value to, anytime you're getting treasure tokens or clues or blood tokens back in those sets. Like they always seem to have play up a little better than you expect.
Like hypothetically, you're replacing itself, you're cycling it and getting a free food, but there's more to it, right? The cards in the graveyard are very relevant. Even if you're not in the squirrel Golgari like recursion stuff, like there's the 2/4 reach squirrel that just wants to forage, and a lot of times I play that in every green deck, doesn't matter my color, and I'm just waiting to play that late as like a creature that has attached a card draw in the mid to late game, right? So things like this is just really nice to help you find all of those little incidental values that really help in the long game.
Yeah, agreed.
We gave this a 4. I think this is an easy 5.5 is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think that's where it should be at this point.
So off by about a point on that card. Next up is the best performing multicolor card. We gave this a 5, and that is Head of the Homestead, 5 mana for a 3/2. When it enters, you get to create 2 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens. Again, I am hesitant to go up too much higher on this. We gave it a 5, which is good, well, not good, but it's playable, it's fine. You definitely want to have things like this in your curve, but I think it's a little better. But again, I think that has more to do with how powerful the rabbits themselves are and what this is doing in that archetype and what it is enabling for the good side of rabbits. But by itself, it's not that powerful, if that makes sense.
Oh, agreed. I think this is entirely carried by the archetype.
Yes. And this does help make the archetype run and function well. So even though we gave this a 5, I would say we would bump this to a 6.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. Next up, we're going to go to the uncommons, guys. And right away, again, you're going to see white, again, focusing heavily on the bunnies. This is the monocolor bunny signpost. It's a 3 mana 3/3. It says whenever this card or another rabbit enters, you get +1/+0 to any creature, then draw a card if this is the second time this ability is resolved. So this with like hop to it, holy crap. This card has been incredibly scary and has demanded removal every time I see it played.
I think I underestimated just how easy it is to get multiple rabbits to enter in a turn.
I mean, I've just been beat down by just the +1/+0 ability. Like when rabbits curve out, this is nasty.
Sure. It still seems again, it's obviously performing very well, and it's the 4th best uncommon in the set. Out of the 100 uncommons, so clearly very good. And I guess it ties in nicely to not just Celestia, but even Boros with the Valiant targeting.
Yep. Well, Valiant, you have to have like a mix of mice and bunnies, which is not super...
Not the easiest.
Yeah, but it by itself, it's a 3 mana 3/3 that targets one Valiant, which is good, and you're likely to have a few stray bunnies, so that's certainly, relevant. One of the biggest parts, too, is that it works so good with like the signpost uncommon that is a card that wants you to have a ton of bunnies and has trample by itself. Like this thing just hits like a truck.
Or even just the one we just looked at, Head of the Homestead, right? That triggers this on its own.
Yes. I mean,
the double trigger.
+3/+0 and draw a card. Like, holy smokes. So good. If you pair all of these bunny cards together, it's just absolute powerhouse. We rated this pretty low, and I think that's because I didn't think the quality of the bunnies would be high enough to get enough triggers. So I would say we definitely needed to go up on this. It's probably a 6.5. It's definitely the thing you're looking for in this deck.
That's where I would have it now, too.
All right, next up, the uncommon blue is the Shoreline Looter. 2 mana for a 2/2. It can't be blocked, and if you have Threshold, you get to, when it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, then discard a card. Unless you have 7 or more cards, it's just draw. We actually had this rated pretty well, 6.5, which I think is correct. I'm surprised we were like pretty on target here, but not on the bunny.
I'm not too surprised because this gets a decent amount of value even without a lot of synergy.
Yeah.
Like, you just get a looter that can get through any sort of pump or counters, just makes this good on its own.
But I was pretty high on bunnies, and I thought it was going to be really good. So, like, maybe maybe H was so early on in the set review that I didn't have the like idea that bunnies were going to be good yet.
Well, true, and it is white, right? It's the first color.
Yeah.
We hadn't seen any of the green stuff yet. Admittedly, here with blue is the second color, so it's not like it's that much lighter.
But the difference being is that this card is all inclusive. Like Threshold
yeah,
is like fulfilling. Having bunnies in your deck and having tramplers is not self fulfilling. So
sure.
I think this one, it does the thing and it does it on its own. It doesn't need the help like the last one, but the last one I think is. I would say the other one's better. So I would say we gave this a 6.5. And even though it's the best performing blue, I want to take it to a 6.
I'm okay with leaving it. It's weird, right? It's 23rd. There's 100 uncommons. It's 23rd. The next highest blue uncommon is 53rd. So it's really just bad. Saying that blue stinks.
Blue really
in
does
this format.
Real bad. Okay, moving on. This is the biggest embarrassment for Yanks and I, which we'll be going over this card again next week when we do the full-on We Were Wrong video. Thoughtstalker Warlock, 3 mana for a 2/2 Lizard Warlock with Menace. When it enters, choose an opponent. If they lost life this turn, they reveal their hand. You choose a non-land card from it, and they discard that card. I don't know. Did we misread this card? Like, I want to go and read it, because we gave it a very, very sad... I lost it, but I'll find it. We gave it a very sad 4 and a 5. Why did I think this was borderline not playable?
Actually, this one, because I was surprised how we rated, I had mostly just been clicking through for the ratings, but rewatched what we said. And we just got very much trapped into thinking about this as a lizard-only card and caring too much about it having to be in Rakdos when we talked about it. Like, it's a 2-for-1 on its own, even if you haven't dealt any damage.
I had an insane bat deck with, 3-4 2-drop bats that I just, and then I had 3 of these, and it triggered every time, and I was just ripping apart their hand. Oh my god, the number of these that I would play in a deck is, above 5. I don't know why. It's just... It is so much value, and they don't see it coming on turn 2. I've run my 1/3 into their 2/2, and they just decide not to block because they don't want to risk the trick. And I'm like, gotcha, bitch. This was the trick. This card is nuts. So good.
Yeah, it is the top performing uncommon in the set.
So, all of the other ones, not surprised they're the top performers. We might have been off by a point, half point, somewhere in that range. Oh, okay, bunnies have higher synergy than I was expecting, so this makes sense. This is the card that got us. This is probably one of our biggest gotcha moments. This has to be a 6.5.
Yeah, agreed. It's great.
Next up is the Flame Cash Gecko 2 mana 2/2. When it enters, if an opponent lost life, you get to add Rakdos mana, and you can also pay 2, discard a card, and draw a card. I like this lizard well enough. I am surprised it is the best performing uncommon in red, considering I would think that spot should go to removal or something a little splashier than this. But, hey, I mean, I guess, the looting and the extra mana the lizards really want. I would have thought it would have been an enabler or a signpost or something.
Yeah, so weirdly, I'm skimming through the red uncommon rankings, and none of the removal spells are ranked pretty high. I guess Rabid Gnaw, the kind of punch spell, is second. But after that, there's none of the burn spells. I guess the good ones are actually all at common.
How did this beat Rabid Gnaw? I don't understand.
It's close. It's 21st versus 26th, and it's 0.2% difference on the win rate. It's very close.
So we gave this a 5, and the numbers say it should probably be higher, but that just has not been my experience. I would probably, if I looked at the list of uncommons, I would probably say, I can at least, I would guess that I would probably pick, 1 or 2, or 2 or 3 to be higher than this, at least. I don't know, I'd have to look at the list, but if I had to just guess how many cards I thought would be higher in the performance rating, I would think, 3.
I would not have pinpointed this as the top performing uncommon, although we talked about this a little bit in, when we did the review. The whole Burning Tree Emissary chain multiple spells, on turn 2 or turn 3 is pretty It can be pretty nasty, especially if you're on the play
Oh,
in a format that doesn't have a lot in the way of comeback mechanics.
I'm a Burning Tree Emissary Swift Spear girly. Like, you don't have to tell me that. Like, you're preaching to the choir, but like, still cannot believe that this is quite as impactful as the number one uncommon in the slot. That's just, it's surprising to me. We gave it a 5. Would you increase that?
Maybe slightly, like maybe like 5.5 or something. It's still only, it's still outside the top 20 uncommons.
I The numbers say otherwise, but like 5 is playable. I still feel like that's what I'm taking this at. So maybe a 5.5, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. And the green uncommon, this, no surprise for me. Hunter's Talent. I was extremely high on this during the set review. When it enters, you bite something, rude. For 2 mana, you get +1/+0 and trample, rude. And at the beginning of the end step, if you control 4 power or greater, draw a card. This card is freaking nuts. Like, this is just not even fair. We gave this, you gave it a 7, I gave it a 7.5. I'm holding fast. Like, I think this game just wins games, this card.
Yeah, I'd probably bring mine up to match you, but, either way, we were pretty on this card.
I mean, honestly, if your deck is not utter garbage, this is like an 8. Like, the amount of cards that you're drawing, the amount of trample damage that you're getting, in addition to just already having wrecked their board with something, that's a bite. It's not even a fight. If this was a fight, like, okay, it's good, but like, eh. Holy crap. The amount of times I just like turn 2 a 2-drop and then turn 3 this, and then I just snowball out of control. It's insane. This card's too good.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised it's not the top performing uncommon, that it's only 5th.
Yeah, that's fair. And green is quite good, but 5th is, not surprising, I guess. I would say top 5, not surprising.
And they're all like, again, we're looking at the win percentage rankings that we're using. They're 57.6665 and then 0.4 for this. So you're talking a couple tenths of a percent. So
yeah, basically the same. Tied for, top whatever 3 or something.
Yeah.
All right. And now the uncommon, which is the Bloomguard Mentor, 2 mana for a trample star where its health and toughness are equal to the creatures. Again, we're just seeing bunnies ruling everything. This is an unbeatable archetype, as you will see very shortly, and it's just incredibly good. Now, the saving grace is that the archetype is overdrafted, so but yeah, I think this card is silly good.
Yeah, this card's very good, and I want to give just a little honorable mention, shout out to Vine Reap Mentor as the only one of the top 5 that doesn't get displayed here because there's just too many good Abzan cards.
Yeah. One of my favorite, like, curving combos with this is in like this on 2 and then something on 3 into the Tree Guard Duo, which gives +X+X, where X is the number of creatures, and Vigilance. So like on turn 4, you're just walloping them for like an 8/8 Vigilance Trampler. That's some scary bunny stuff.
I mean, he's a pretty angry looking bunny.
It'll make your opponents hopping mad. Just for all of you silly animal pun people. All right, let's move on to the rares. We're about halfway done here with what we wanted to go over. Valley Quest Caller, 2 mana for a 2/3 Rabbit Warrior. All of your white animals, your rabbits, bats, birds, mice, all come into play with a scry, and they all get +1/+1. It's above rate. It's like a lord for literally everything you could be doing in white. And sometimes there's overlap if you happen to be in red, black, green, or blue, right? Basically everything except for...
That's all of them.
Oh, that's all of them. Just... For some reason I thought there was like one archetype it didn't match with real well. But maybe I'm...
No, because it's the... Rabbits, birds. Yeah.
Maybe I think I had it in my sealed pool and it just didn't hit a lot. But I don't remember why. I think I was like...
Yeah, it names your 4, like, white color pair creatures.
I think I was like in Orzhov, but I was like leaning heavier into like lizards. Like, you know what I mean? Like, for whatever reason, it didn't hit a lot. in my deck. So ignore what I said. But yeah, not surprised this is really good. We talked about how scary the bunnies can be when you curve out, how scary mice can be when you curve out, and this is just going to have a well above rate creature that's also making that easier and easier for you to do. It's making that curve just absolutely insane.
Yeah, this is the top ranked rare in the set. It's actually also ranked higher than all the mythics as well in terms of win rate when played in your deck, in your main deck. And it's actually got a big gap on the rest of the rares. It's almost a full percent, 0.9%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's the gap. The gap between first and second is bigger than the gap between second and 10th. There's the same as the gap between second and 10th.
Yeah, holy crap. So we gave this a 7.5. What are we upping it to?
It's probably like an 8.5. It still doesn't do anything if you just kill it, which is the problem with making it too high, but
yeah, I think the idea is that like I'm going to go up a half a point only. It can win the game if left alone to do its thing, and it needs some outside assistance, right? You have to have those other creature types that are relevant. You can't be heavy on the lizard stalkers. All right, moving on to blue, we have the Azure Beast Binder, 2 mana for a 1/3 with Vigilance. When it attacks, it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or greater. And when it attacks, up to 1 target creature, planeswalker, artifact, loses all of abilities and becomes a 2/2, which means whatever can block it can no longer block it, in addition to just not having any abilities until your next turn. So they can't hit you back for a lot. They also can't do any scary abilities to you until your turn. So this is shutting down everything scary and guaranteeing you can get in for damage.
So I think if you want the perfect example of how bad blue is in this set, this is it. This is the top rated rare, and it's in the bottom half of rares.
Yeah, so we rated this a 7. The best rare is what, like, what's the number? Like 40th or something?
There's not 34th. It's 34th out of 60.
Yeah, this is the best blue can offer is by breaking into the top 40 rares. That's it. Can't even break top 25. Blue is sad.
Yeah, and I'm still kind of stunned that the top rated blue rare isn't Mockingbird.
I was thinking the same thing.
Which is actually like the 6th rated blue rare. I mean, they're all in a big clump at the bottom, but
my rat stacks have been bad. My Mockingbird was really good. I would have put money on Mockingbird being better than this in the numbers, but I just don't think this card is good. I don't think it's saying that this is the best blue card is worth saying it should go up in our rating. In fact, the amount of times I've seen this card and played it, I am less impressed with it than I think I thought I was originally at 7.
Yeah, it's tough because like I don't know what to do with cards like this where there's nothing wrong with the card.
No, it's just fine.
The archetypes stink.
Yeah.
They managed to take what's usually the problem, and which is Simic stinks, and turn it into all the blues archetypes stink.
Yeah. So I think 7 is spot on. I think it's a good card. I'm excited to play when I'm in blue, but it's just not that powerful.
Yeah.
All right, black, the Dark Star Augur, 3 mana for a 2/1 with Offspring 1. It has flying, and whenever at the beginning of your upkeep, reveal a top card of your library, you can reveal that card, put it into your hand, and lose life equal to its mana cost. Some cute stuff with this. There's a lot of like 2 mana, like gain a bunch of life. There's foods. There's an artifact that drains every turn. There's bats that drain. The Life Creed Duo, which honestly I'm surprised is not. I would have maybe thought Life Creed Duo might have beaten out Carrot Cake, but bunnies are too good. But Life Creed Duo, that card is one of my favorite cards in the set. So there's enough life gain to counteract this. I think that this is better than I initially thought. You gave it an 8. I gave it a 7.5 because I was too scared of bobbing myself. But I think that just isn't the case.
I think it's a reasonable thing to be worried about, especially when we're doing a set review. We haven't played the set. The format's so low to the ground that you just don't have a lot of super high mana costs in your deck.
Yeah, I think the life gain is better than I expected. I think the format's a little faster than I expected, so you're not keeping this around too long. And the other thing too is that like if your opponents let you just continue to draw, you're going to be able to outpace them, outvalue them so quickly that you will win the game before this becomes super duper relevant. I did have someone offspring this on me on turn 4, and it was a really long game. I got them to 1, and then they barely won because they had like drawn every card in their deck. And that was like best case scenario for me, to drag it out as long as I did. So this card, I gave it a 7.5. I believe you said you gave it an 8. What do you think?
I think I'm happy with where I put it.
Yeah, I think I would go up a little bit more. I think I'm happier to do like 8.5 even. I would bump it almost a full point. Again, I think this card is game winning.
Yeah, I think I could see 8.5. And like the risk is real, but it's not nearly as risky as it might be in some other formats.
Agreed. Okay, next up, Manifold Mouse. This is a 2-mana 1/2 with Offspring. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target mouse you control gains your choice of Double Strike, Trample until end of turn. And when you do this with Offspring, you get both of those triggers potentially on different creatures. And I like this card, and every time I see it played against me, it's a huge problem. I think I'm the amount of games where this is on the opposite side of the board that I have then lost the game is pretty high.
Yeah, I've definitely played against this card and lost to it. That's for sure.
Yeah, so let's take a look at what our ratings were. Whoa, yanks.
Let's not and say we did.
So I gave this a 7, which it's probably an 8. Yanks gave this a 4. You wanna tell us a little bit about what you were thinking on that 4?
Yeah, I really did not think that you were gonna have like enough mice where you cared. I thought it was very restrictive to one archetype in Boros. And yeah, they can target themselves, but I don't care about a 1/2 double striker or 1/2 trampler. That's what I was thinking. Clearly hasn't played out that way.
Yeah, because if this is in Gruul, just having like, your idiot moose be a double striker.
Well, you can't. You have to.
Oh, it has to be
mouse.
a mouse. You're right.
Yeah.
But man, there's there's the 3/4 first striker. There's like, I don't know, everything. This thing has just been so nasty every time I played against it.
Yeah, I think I didn't consider well enough. You don't really have to be that big to care about double strike. Like 2-power double strike is enough.
Yeah,
so is and there's 3/2s. Those are perfectly fine.
Because it makes all your like little idiots at least trade up on like bats and all sorts of stuff. And with how much Offspring are in these colors, like you're getting some work in. Yeah, this card is good. I agree. It is a little archetype specific compared to some of the others that are a little bit more flexible. But what would you come up to now that you know this card's not a 4?
It's weird. Like my initial thought is I want to bring it up to a 7, but Boros isn't very good, which makes me a little hesitant. But I'd keep it at 7 because it's performed very well.
I like Boros. I've come to like the Valiant mechanic. It's easier to trigger and more payoff than I expected, which you guys will see a little bit. That'll be one of my major like cards that I point out will be a Valiant card in the We Were Wrong, because that has just played out better. So I'm still gonna leave it at a 7. Again, I like red, but I like it a little bit more in Gruul. So I still think that this is good, but it's not winning games on its own.
Agreed.
Maybe a 7.5. Next up, we have the Turtle, 5 mana for a 4/6 with Reach. And if you have 10 or more lands, creatures get +2/+2. All your creatures. And then whenever it or another creature with greater toughness than power enter, you get to look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, put it into play. If not, you get to put it into your hand. So you get card draw. This card, I played it during the pre-release, and it's an absolute like banger. This card's amazing. Yeah,
this card was one of probably the easier ones to rate because it really doesn't care about any other cards. It's just, it is what it is on its face. Like there's no synergy with, if you have a ramp deck, sure, you're getting to 10 mana faster, or 10 lands faster, but there's no creature type synergy. It's just a big reacher that gives you card advantage and makes everything bigger.
A 4/6 with reach that replaces itself for 5 mana is good in my book. And then the fact that you don't have to have larger booties in the deck to eventually enable your board clear. So it's just like a failsafe for any go wide long games, because it's going to eventually you'll hit 7 or 10 and then you will kill your opponent. They have to like push the issue and maybe accidentally get themselves into trouble trying to race you to get to 10 land. And then if you happen to have some things like some stray bats, I've played this in a handful of Selesnya decks that had some creatures that had the little bit of booty. The Rabbit Lord we saw, that's in the top 5 here. All really good cards. There's plenty of things that will trigger this on its own. Your green mana dork's a 1/3. This is just, it's super easy to just churn through extra cards and lands. We both gave it an 8. What are you thinking now?
I'm gonna at least bump it to an 8.5 just because of they kill it, but you still at least replaced itself, so you're 2 for 1 at minimum. Maybe you've lost some mana in the exchange, but
I'm gonna raise.
That's the worst case.
I'm gonna raise 8.5.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Bumped it up.
Oh, I meant 9.
Oh.
I'm going to raise, you said, we both said 8, you went to 8.5, I'm going to raise you and go to 9. That's how numbers work. This card is game winning. Like, it's already replaced itself. It's not quite replaced itself enough to bump it to a 10, but like, you're not losing games when you are playing this turtle. Very, very rarely. So.
Yeah, it's a number 2 rated rare, 6th overall if you include, mythics. And that includes mythic like Sword of Fire and Ice, which shouldn't really count.
Yeah, not surprised at all. This one was a little surprising. This is the Dream Dew Enchanter. 4 mana for a 3/4 with reach. When it enters, you can tap a creature, put 3 stun counters on it. If you control that creature, you draw 2 cards. The amount of bouncing, so being able to stun your own little like Sunspring whatever idiot and then bounce it, draw 2, put a counter, gain a life. Like the synergy is great. In addition to the uncommon signpost where you can just pay 3 to blink over and over again. There was a time where I would just like pay 9, blink, 3 times, put 3 stun counters on your entire board, kill you. Like you just don't come back from that.
Yeah, this is a very big outlier in the data, right? It's the 3rd rated rare. It's the only thing, hell, even in the top half of any of the archetypes that has blue in it. But it's just a super strong card on its own.
I've cast this a lot. My frog decks have all been very strong, but I feel like they need these things. The frog rares are good. Downpour Mage, Dowerpour Mage, I forget the name. This Enchanter, the Lily Splash Uncommon Mentor, they're so good. The problem is that none of the frog cards are good enough on their own unless they have all of that cement to fill in the gaps. And I think that's why you're seeing this perform so well, because if you have this in your deck, you have the good frog deck, right? There's just so many failed frog decks.
Yeah, it's one of those archetypes where if the right stuff gets opened, then you can have a good deck because you're probably going to be the only one at the table going after it. But sometimes these rares just don't get opened.
Yeah, I've had like so many Selesnyas where I'm like trying to be bunnies. I still get like 5, 6 wins, and I completely failed. The draft is bad. Like it's just Selesnya stuff, and it's still good. Whereas like you just can't pull that off with frogs, right? Like you have to be in the right spot. You have to have the cards opened, and you have to be the only one in the archetype.
Agreed.
We rated this as a 7.5. I could see bumping it to an 8. But again, it's just it's tough because the frog deck on average I think is weaker than the others.
I almost kind of feel like I have to bump it to an 8 because the rest of the cards are all rated so poorly in the deck, and this is still winning, so yeah, it must be that good.
It really is. It's kind of crazy. Okay, so next up we wanted to just pull up a few archetype numbers for you guys to wrap up the episode. So let's just pull these up. We just wanted to touch briefly on the different stats and let you guys know what it looks like. So it's interesting to see. We'll start with the monocolor cards in the top corner there. They all have a higher than 50% win rate. So like I haven't drafted much monocolor, but they're having pretty good results. I mean, monocolor with a splash, which on 17 lands is represented between 1 and 3 cards of a second color.
Yeah, now I think we have to take two things with this data. One is that if you go to their website, look at their overall data, their overall win rate is almost 55% because it's only culled from data that people have, downloaded their tracker. Odds are they're probably more enfranchised and are going to be doing better. So, we look at the 3-color number, for example, that's at 50.8. That's actually well worse than average for the data they're getting.
Yes.
Monocolor is high, but I think that's not super surprising because the only reason you're going to go monocolor is if that is so incredibly open.
Yeah, but every time even if it's incredibly open, you're still locking yourself into an overall lower power level. But like, monocolor decks can be good, of course. I'm just surprised that it's better than 2 colors. Or
I am
it's close
too to some degree, but it's also right. It's 6,000 games versus 391,000 games. It's a very small percentage of the overall numbers.
Agreed. Mono white, that's the only one I wanted to touch on. 61%. So we're looking at like bunny go wide aggro, like swift response, rabbit swift response, whatever. Carrot cakes, obviously, like the white rares are so good. I guess I should give it a try.
I mean, I'm guessing that deck, right, that's got the most games. That's probably mono white rabbits with a couple of assigned posts.
Yeah.
As your 3 splash cards.
Agreed. Moving on to the 2 colors, the highest win rate is Selesnya, followed very closely by Golgari. I'm a little surprised to see Golgari in second place.
Yeah, I think we look at the win rates and the general power level of this set is kind of just focused in Abzan. Like Selesnya is 1, Golgari's 2, Orzhov is 4th, with Rakdos sitting in between. I guess just because of that, like I think that's just where all the cards lie in this format. You saw like how low the top red and blue cards were.
Yeah, kind of interesting. So green is in first, second, fourth, and fifth? No, fifth and sixth. First, second, fifth, and sixth. So green showing really strong pretty much across the board, with blue showing 8, 9, and 10 in Dimir, Azorius, and Izzet. With
and Simic pulled up by the green cards.
Yeah, Simic being exactly carried hard by like great synergistic frog cards. White looking at 1, 4, 7, and 9, like pretty even spread, which I kind of like to see. I kind of wish that it was all just shuffled. I think that would make for a good format, and I've really enjoyed white. I've enjoyed drafting Selesnya, Orzhov. My bunny deck or my mice deck suck. I'm really looking forward to getting a good mouse deck, but.
I mean that's right. It's that their win rate for that is like right on par with their overall data, right between 54 and 55% for Boros. So it really is it that's struggling there.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I have had the worst luck with Dimir. I would have put money on Dimir being the weakest of the bunch, but Izzet being also weak is not terribly surprising. The black cards are pretty good.
I probably would have agreed, except for there's just been a lot of chatter about how bad the otter decks are.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of that on social media too, and I've only done 1 or 2 otter decks, maybe 2 or 3, and they've all been like fine, nothing spectacular. But the other thing, otters have the opposite problem of the frogs too, where like a couple of times I've had the otter rare where I'm just like, like it's not that good. I feel like the other otters are carrying it, and it's missing the good heavy hitting top end that the frogs have.
I think also some of the decent number of the otters a few of them at least are good enough to stick in other decks. Like the red one that lets you exile the top card of your library when you play, another otter, but also any non-creature spell. I mean, Rakdos with its removal likes that just fine. Like,
let's go ahead and wrap it up with the 3 colors, or 2 colors and a splash, I guess.
Yeah, again, poor is it?
Yeah. The overall win rates really start to drop off very hard. You see all of the splash colors, the ones that have the highest win rate have green in it, which makes sense because that's where the fixing is, right? We have multiple fixers in those colors. The artifact that fixes has surprised me and played very well, in addition to like the 1/3 that makes any color.
Yeah.
So win rates overall going down, and then by the time you get to full on 3 color, you're like rarely hitting 50% or like the 50% average. So it looks like the payoffs for going into 3 colors is really just not there.
Yeah, the only one that seems to be doing reasonably well is Sultai, which is interesting. It's got about the same win rate as just straight Demir, a little bit. I guess it's still a little bit less than any of the 3 on their own, 3 pairs that make that up.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think.
But what I also find interesting is just how sharp of a drop off there is from that splash to 3 colors in just terms of number of games. Right? There's almost 10 times as many games in that splash category as in 3 colors. You're just not seeing a lot of people playing 3 color decks.
Yeah, the fixing is just not. There's 2 lands, right, in the format that help with that, and then green has like 2 resources. There's also a really good 2 mana filter bird, which I've used quite a bit to help. I'm a sucker for like the bird lord. I find myself splashing that anytime I can, which is probably not good enough, but I do it anyway because the card's insane. And that's a good resource to have for an easy splash.
I do like that. Actually, unsurprisingly, the least attempted 3 color archetype is Jeskai, which doesn't surprise you considering that Izzet and Azorius are the 2 worst pairs.
Yeah.
So nobody really wants to put them together.
I'm a little surprised. I'm not surprised about Izzet because that deck is often hard in anytime you see Izzet spells. Even if the deck can be good, it's difficult to get a good deck for. I'm more surprised about the birds.
I think Azorius really struggles with getting you into that deck. Like, look at the 2 color straight Azorius. It's got 5,000 less games than any other pair.
Yeah. I
think you just don't get pulled into that easily.
The other thing, too, is like not the multicolor signpost, but some of the other birds, like the Lifecraft Duo and like the 5 mana bird, they're just fine in other decks. Yeah. The Hummingbird, the 2 mana like hexproof bird. So, like, I feel like those decks are just thinner because all of the pieces are being picked up, whereas, like, bats and frogs don't really have that problem.
Yeah, it's the curse of the blue-white flyers archetype. Every white deck wants white flyers, and every blue deck wants blue flyers.
Yeah, like, even if I'm playing rats, like, I will take this Hummingbird because it's just a very good card. And I feel like that's really punishing the archetype here, whereas, like, if you were the only bird drafter, like you are the only frog drafter, because frogs in general are not as good, I think this number would be insanely high. Because I think the cards, they're powerful enough to be there. They're just not enough of them. All right, Yanks. Sure. Any final thoughts on Bloomburrow before we move into the We Were Wrong video?
No, other than I can't believe how wrong I was on that mouse.
I can't believe how wrong we were on that Thought Stalker.
Well, yeah.
That was not as embarrassing as the mouse.
Oh, thank you.
But we will go over more embarrassing We Were Wrong stuff in our next update video. We'll see that in about a couple of days. Thank you guys.
I'm gonna go back on saying I was too distracted from having to read cards in Spanish during the red section.
Fair.
To get the mouse right.
But that was in black before we got to red.
That was in red.
The Thought Stalker wasn't.
Oh, the Thought Stalker. Yeah, I meant the mouse. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to follow and subscribe or whatever you do on YouTube. And don't forget to use the link down below in the description for our sponsors. It helps out the stream a lot, even if you just check them out. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next one.